Hello, and thank you for joining us for the first in a short series of presentations which have been developed to conclude our educational campaign on UL standards. That campaign up to this point has included lots of media coverage, a number of blogs and videos from PP Control and Automation, alongside guest contributions from Rockwell Automation, Lutzer and Product Approvals Limited. All guest contributors will also be delivering presentations, much like today's, and will focus on the wider component selection considerations, cabling and interconnectivity, plus inspection and evaluation and the UL guidelines. To start us off though, I'm joined by three speakers from PP Control and Automation, CEO Tony Haig, Sales Director Gary Meyer, and Chief Information Officer Ian Knight, and they'll be introducing three separate subjects. Firstly, the opportunity presented to machinery builders in relation to UL and the North American market, then the business considerations, and finally the design considerations. So without further delay, I'll hand you over to Tony, if you don't mind, so we can get things properly underway.
That's great, thanks Richard, and welcome to our presentation. My job really is to set the scene, really associated with our UL mission. The North American markets represent a significant opportunity for UK manufacturing and in particular UK machine builders. We're seeing that with both existing clients and indeed new customers. So there's a real opportunity, and the opportunity comes on the back of some real challenges for UK manufacturing. We've all had to contend with what I guess we call the toxic mix of political uncertainty, general elections, trade negotiations ongoing with Europe. Then we were hit with a global pandemic virus, and we've still got Brexit negotiations to agree before the end of the year. So to be blunt, it's been rather challenging for all of us. Hence the real reason to stand united as UK manufacturers and look at all of the areas of growth potential. And we believe that North America represents a very significant opportunity for everybody. But, and it's a big but, you have to get it right. North America is different. Engineering design detail is different to Europe. Certification and approval expectations in North America are different to Europe. And we all know North America can be litigious. I think the phrase where there's blame there's a claim certainly applies to North America, and being blunt, the cost of getting it wrong can be eye-wateringly expensive. So the sort of singular purpose of this UL campaign that we've put together and conducted with some of our trusted partners is fundamentally there to dispel, as we said, and clear up some of the many misconceptions that we see surrounding UL. I think as a subject, we probably see more confusion around what constitutes UL and what doesn't than probably any other subject, quite frankly. We're here with our partners to provide some guidance and support, really, I guess, create an education resource, because ultimately we want to encourage more UK machine builders to explore the North American opportunity with that additional knowledge and awareness, and hopefully seize the opportunity and go into it with eyes wide open, for want of a better phrase. So that's me done fundamentally associated with our mission. I'm going to hand over to Gary Meyer, our Sales Director, who will start to really sort of take you through the next piece of the jigsaw.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. So yeah, good day to everybody. What I wanted to do was just take you through, as you will see there, some key points associated with really, as Tony alluded to, getting it right and the business considerations to selling your machines into North America and Canada. As you know, as a machine builder or an OEM of machines, if you're looking to expand into that marketplace, you'll certainly do your due diligence on the regulatory approvals, what is the key badges or stamping that you require to sell your product in North America. For panel builders, for machine builders, certainly for us, it's the UL 508A accreditation. And what does that actually mean? Is it the component? Is it the panel? Is it the machine? So really what you want to do is be doing your due diligence, understanding what you need to do as an OEM machine builder into North America, and make sure you meet those standards. If you don't, the potential impacts to your business and your customer are huge. You know, if you don't get it right, you could end up having staff and personnel from UL visit your end customer. They could end up quarantining, red flagging your product. So yeah, just get it right, I think, is the message. And in order to get that right and to avoid unnecessary inspection at customs is making sure your paperwork's correct. So what does your dispatch paperwork say? Does it relate to the panel? Does it relate to the machine? Does it relate to the shipment? There might be multiple machines in that shipment. Have you got the correct logbook for all of the parts for that particular machine? Does it meet the manifest? Have you got the harmonisation tariff codes correct? So what we're trying to say here is make sure your paperwork's correct, avoid any unwanted attention, and you should be fine. If you don't, and you do get flagged, the implications, like I say, are huge. You could end up seeing, like I say, the product being quarantined, the product being shipped back to you back in the UK or where you're building that product. You could end up big heavy fines. Your customer could end up being shut down. So yeah, paperwork is absolutely key. Costs is key, and ultimately, I'd just like to end on really getting it right is absolutely paramount. Don't damage your reputation. Don't damage the trust between you, yourselves, and the customers. And yeah, do your due diligence, get it right. I'd like to pass you over to Ian now, who will just take you through some of the key design considerations. Take it forward. Okay, over to you, Ian.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to run through some basic design considerations with you all. These are areas that we see customers from time to time getting caught out, having some discussion with UL on compliance and trying to sort of overcome these with UL and the customer at the same time, just to make sure that everything flows nice and smoothly. So the first area that I think most people come to with UL is breaker selection. It's quite often when we look at a technical pack that we see the incorrect UL breakers used in the wrong application. So there's two standards for circuit breakers. We have branch protection and supplementary protection. So branch protection is basically your main incoming suppliers, your main outgoing to your field devices, and your supplementary is basically the auxiliary protection for the ancillary devices inside the panels. What we do see is a mixture of those two devices. So the real key thing here is that if one of these is flagged, then this will be a non-compliant compliance. Now, the branch circuit protection also provides the short circuit current rating for the consistent system, and this is one of the areas whereby we've seen this cause control system not to be installed by the installer. Basically, it's a safety rating of the control system. It's the maximum current that control system can stand. And sometimes, particularly when you design it to a UL standard, the customer will give you a rating that your system needs to comply to. Typically, that will be higher than it is in Europe. Typically, higher rated breakers, typically larger space required for those breakers, and typically higher size cables coming into those breakers. These are sort of areas whereby you can get caught quite easily. Now, to determine the short circuit rating, there's three ways that UL gives you. The first two aren't really practical in terms of control systems. The first one is a destructive test. The second one is to buy a fairly standard assembly incorporate into another device. The final one is to use a supplement within the 508A standard, which is basically you go through your circuit and you find the weakest point and you generate your short circuit current rating from the weakest link, so to speak, within that circuit. And one of the obvious things that a lot of people fail to do is do not put the short circuit rating on the rating label. This can lead to the system not even be installed because the installer does not know whether it's safe to install. So it's quite easy to forget. It's quite easy to call it something different because in Europe we call it a different thing. For UL, it's SCCR, it must be clearly stated on the rating label. The other one is, another area is cable selection. Now, although UL allows you to use whatever colour cables that you want, you document them correctly, that is normally an area where people all fail. We find it a lot simpler just to follow the UL guidelines on the cable colours. This will mean that by default, you will not have the necessary ways to document that within your technical pack. You'll comply by default. And a lot of people don't realise that cable sizes in UL are specified by circuit, and so minimum cable sizes. And what that can lead to is an increase in cable size from what you would normally see in Europe. So what you'll see is control circuits maybe a size above, incoming supplies from motors being larger, and incoming cables being larger as well. So obviously the concern there is obviously your size and trunkings and cable management, and also the bend radiuses to get these cables in to where they need to. And what you'll find is that if the installer can't install these to the right bend radiuses in the right way, they will not install the system. We have seen that a number of times where customers have, because they've upgraded the main breaker to satisfy the short circuit current, has underestimated the size of the incoming cable. And the final area are sort of areas where people can fulfil quite easily, particularly when you consider that European standards aren't the same as the UL standards. So these are little sort of traps that you can fall into quite easily. So the first one is ventilation openings. Now, UL's quite clear that you cannot have a ventilation opening, so a fan or filter where an operator is supposed to stand. So if you've got buttons or push buttons on doors where you expect an operator to operate a piece of equipment and there's a fan or vent, immediately next to that set controls, that will be a non-compliance. UL are also quite specific about the size of observation windows in doors, inside of cabinets. It's always worth just getting that standard out and just making sure if you've got a window that, yes, it's within the spec that you're allowed. And that's pretty much the same as the heat position as well. Again, it's one of those areas that is documented probably a lot more in UL than it is in the European standards. So it's always worth just getting it out, just checking your design spec and making sure that heater isn't in the wrong place. UL also specified push button colours. Now, and again, same with the cable colours. You can use pretty much whatever colour you want within reason. However, then you need to provide a schedule somewhere in your technical documentation of what colours for what. It's a lot easier just follow the UL standard, and then it's compliant by default. Marking and rating plate details. I mentioned the short circuit current rating that needs to be on there, but there's also other information that needs to be on there. It's detailed very technically in the document. I think there's 6 or 7 elements that need to be on that rating label. So always we're just grabbing that clause out of that UL standard and just making sure that you've covered all those bases, particularly if you're going from the EU standard and trying to convert it to UL. One of the overlooked areas are power outlets. It sounds silly, but where you might have an EU plug or BS plug in the control system, obviously you will have a problem. You will certify that device. So it's always best to just try and find something that is not a standard outlet, whether an IEC socket or something else, but that's always almost the first thing that an inspector will look at. Is there a EU socket in there that isn't UL approved? And the final one, the final area, is that there's normally a lot of work done on to UL certified and go through the due diligence process and all the, say, key items, breakers, and those devices. But what we see sometimes is a lot of some of the minor things like cable ties, breakers, cable ferrules, pieces of heat shrink, all these little ancillary items that all need to be UL are sort of overlooked. So it's always, well, and we know from experience that UL inspectors will look down to that level just to make sure that you put a tick in every box you need to tick in before you certify it to UL.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you all. So just to conclude, I'm sure our viewers have recognised the opportunity and really begun to understand the importance of all the different facets and considerations of the standard, and of course the importance of getting it right and avoiding the pitfalls, which from today's presentation is clearly fairly varied and complex, but definitely shouldn't be something feared, I think. And one major takeaway is really about consulting the right people at the right time in the process. So what we'll do now is we'll share relevant links in the video description, and those links will give you access to all campaign resources and ways in which to consult with those right people with any further questions. So thanks to our viewers for watching, and again, thanks to you, Tony, Gary and Ian.
Many thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Richard.
Cheers.